Thank you everyone for joining the call today. My name is Jake Becker and I'm the VP of Sales at Records Force and Pace. And today I will be presenting how a business operating system solves some of the most common issues that people face in the document scanning industry. Let's kick things off. So just to provide a little bit of background, my mom and dad founded a document scanning service bureau back in 2001 and they named it Records Force. They started it in the basement of the house that I grew up in. So I've been pulling staples out of documents since I was about 5 years old. But you can see a couple pictures of the early days here. And if any of you have been in the industry for a while, I'm sure your offices looked a lot like that at one point, or maybe they still do today. But prior to Records Force, my dad worked for the largest microfilm processing company in the US. And as the industry evolved, he went from moving paper to film to digital, and then ultimately today, a combination of digital records to data, and then any physical media to digital. During our first 5 years in business, we struggled. We didn't always have enough work to keep a full staff, but over time, we started to hit our stride, and today we've grown to just over 300 employees at two different office locations. And during the early periods of growth, we started to realize that our way of managing the operation just wasn't cutting it anymore. And of course, we were experiencing a lot of growing pains. And the first issue that we faced occurred when we made the switch from having about 5 projects in the office at any given time to a few dozen. We were tracking deadlines and batches on a whiteboard and with spreadsheets, and we started to miss SLAs because it was just too much to handle operating, in a very manual environment. And the next issue we faced was tracking our profitability on projects um, and tasks before it was too late. We wouldn't know how successful we were on a project until it was completed, and oftentimes until it was billed, and that was affecting our bottom line. And finally, we had no grasp on our employees' performance on each task and how they compared to each other. We also had no idea how much time our employees spent working while they were at work, or how much time they were idle. Um, and in all reality, there were dozens of other issues that we were facing during that time period, but ultimately we were forced to go out and find a solution. So we evaluated a handful of business operating systems and reporting tools, but we never really found anything that quite covered our needs. So after testing a few other systems, we decided to invest a significant amount of resources to build our own business operating system. And after 15 years and a few name changes, we arrived at Pace. So, from a high level, Pace has become an ERP system for scanning companies. But at its core, Pace holds all of our customer and project information as well as our employee costs and overhead. It's not just a reporting system, but the actual place where our staff logs into tasks, approves work instructions, and occasionally enters project-related metrics like pages scanned or documents indexed. Pace's built-in time clock system allows us to track each employee while they're at work and monitor what task each person is working, how long they've been in that task, and when they finish or stop a task, we can get their performance. By having our staff log into each specific task and having all of their wages and overhead multipliers calculated, we create real-time data about our production that can be reported on and shared at any given time. So before Pace, we were trying to track all of these things on several different spreadsheets, and it just wasn't working anymore. So now nearly our whole operation is run on a unified platform, and this has been a huge help to our business. Um, so, to kind of space things out, that's a very high level, representation of what PACE is. And before I really get into those specific issues that we were facing before, I kind of want to open things up and make sure that we're all still here for the same reasons. And if you guys have any preliminary questions, you can fire them off in the little chat section below. I'll give us about 30 seconds there, but otherwise I will press on. Oh, it seems like then I will continue full steam ahead. So um, a document scanning service bureau has a lot in common with a manufacturing company. The raw materials that we work with are physical documents and the output is an electronic version of those files or the data that existed on those records. And when you start to look at your operation from a manufacturing perspective, you can start to replicate some well-documented processes that have been perfected over the years, outside of our industry. A lot of what we do is based on the FDA's good manufacturing practices. For example, we need to be able to track a batch at any step of production and verify who has worked on that batch, that they've been trained, and that they've acknowledged the work instructions for that task. Before we built PACE, we thought that quality meant that the client never complained. And today we recognize that it actually means that we can prove that everything we claim from a quality perspective is in fact true and documented. Um, Now that we have this system in place, passing our SOC audits has never been so easy. And I know that's a big topic of discussion in our industry, and it's been very helpful from an audit perspective. In addition to validating that all of our work is being done in a controlled and approved manner, we also need to make sure we're going to meet SLAs. So this is a screenshot of one of the reports we can use to see what is currently being worked on in the office and how much progress has been made on a project. Our operations manager runs these reports daily to get a snapshot of our current production load and to see that we're on schedule. They can also adjust what takes priority at any given time and control what is available for an operator to work on based on roles or experience. We've also built an auto queue feature to completely eliminate the option for employees to pick and choose which boxes they work on. So no more cherry picking like the easiest boxes or the easiest task. And as more and more processes become automated, it's important to incorporate safety nets into our production as well. So it doesn't create a very trustworthy experience when we deliver files to a client and half the images are missing or the number of files is way off from the original estimate. And it's even worse when it's the client that notifies us of that error. So for this reason, we've incorporated an export monitoring system into PACE that keeps us updated on the status of exports and notifies us of errors before the client is ever sent the files. And the final monitoring capability that we provide is for the customer. In a highly commoditized industry like ours is, the speed to trust is really important. And there aren't many better ways to build trust with a client than to give full access to a live report that shows exactly what has been completed and what is left to work on. One of our clients called the customer portal a nanny cam for your documents. And during most of our sales calls, we make a point to reference this feature, basically just to prove to our clients that we have absolutely nothing to hide. And it's been a competitive advantage for us and has been the final reason several clients ultimately chose to work with us. And it's, me in sales, I love to talk about it going forward. So in addition to monitoring throughputs, we struggled for a long time to measure how well each of our employees performed at any given task. From a manufacturing perspective, again, it's important to know which operators are best at what tasks and what pieces of hardware create the highest throughputs. Because each of our staff members log in and out of specific tasks when they work, we can objectively measure how people compare. And we use this data to create throughput goals and also reward our top performers at the company. So this feature was especially useful for data entry operators and preppers. And when we started to measure the speed at which our folks were working, we immediately had increased production across both of those tasks. And then we even incorporated it into scanning speeds and basically every other facet of our business and immediately experienced a speed boost. So, we're able to use real data to determine what types of scanners were best for specific types of documents. And we've also been able to reallocate staff based upon what they do well and what they like to do. So high performances ultimately drive greater profitability, but without PACE, it was difficult to know just how profitable we were. In many cases, our estimates are based on a best guess. And if any of the details that went into creating the quote were wrong, there wasn't much we could do about it until the end of the project. And so by managing all of your labor costs and project metrics in a single system, you can run real-time reports on your cost and revenues as soon as you start processing a new project. And at RecordsForce, this feature has allowed us to renegotiate deals where we may have left money on the table or completed a project with little to no profit at all. A specific instance of this just happened this year at RecordsForce, where we closed a 2,000 box deal with a pretty large department in the State Department in New Hampshire, and um, they had described that they were going to have 4 million large format images and 4 million standard size images. And they gave us an example of what the files look like so that we could build out a prep rate. And when we actually got started with the project, nearly every single thing that they had described about their project was completely not true. And so we were able to run reports out of Pace, which gave us exact metrics for every single step of the project that we build upon, and had a really objective conversation saying, guys, like, this is just not what you described, and here's the facts for what we're actually experiencing. So we need to change this contract around to represent what's actually being worked on, and we were able to get that project done, and it saved our company nearly $1 million. So, just as a real life example there, that we use the system every day to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And so from an owner's perspective, one of the best features of Pace is the ability to look at a date range and get a full representation of your costs, revenue, and total profits. The report on this slide might take a full day or multiple days of calculations to create, but with Pace, you can run this report whenever you want. You can narrow these searches down to get as granular as you'd like, but ultimately, this allows you to work from anywhere with internet access and get a quick look at the health of your business. And our CEO spends half his time in California while his operation runs on the complete other side of the country. But with Pace, he can see exactly what we're working on and how the business is running whenever he pleases. As we wrap this up, I've gone a little bit faster here than we originally had allocated, but I want to thank you guys for staying with me so far. But the biggest thing that I skipped over today is that Pace also has a fully built-in data extraction and indexing system, which could replace something like SciGen or PaperVision. So we use Pace for all of our document classification and indexing, and it also has a number of automated capture and classification tools built in. But it took us more than 15 years to get Pace to where it is today. And currently, we have Pace users in 4 different countries. So if you guys would ever be interested to schedule a demo to get a deeper dive in what this looks like, please reach out to me after this call.